Good evening and thank you for joining us. Local border service officers staged a picket outside MP Patty Hajdu's office today as they continue to negotiate a new contract with the federal government. Now, if a deal isn't reached by 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, union members will begin a sweeping series of job actions right across the country. And as Avery McCrae explains, the timing couldn't be worse, with the border set to reopen to U.S. visitors on Monday.
What do we want?
Contract!
When do we want it?
Now!
How long?
Too long!
How long?
Too long!
It has been since 2018, to be exact, that Canada Border Services officers have been without a contract. And if a deal is not struck soon, nearly 9,000 Canadian Border Services Agency workers will begin a job action across the country. Thursday, local border services officers with the Public Services Alliance of Canada and its Customs and Immigration Union showed their displeasure outside MP Patty Hajdu's office. The Canadian border is set to reopen to U.S. travelers on August 9th, and local M.P.P. Judith Monteith-Farrell, who was once a union rep for border services officers, says the decision to open it up before having a deal with its workers is a little backwards.
That's the irony. You would think that they would want to first reward the people that were at that border, you know, keeping us safe and having to do a very hard job turning people away. There was a lot of stories there as well, right?
We take our job very seriously. We want to serve the public in a way that we can to our fullest ability, and our fullest ability is with the support of our employer behind us and recognizing us for the work that we do.
If a deal is not reached by 6 a.m. Friday morning, those traveling at the border can expect things to take a little bit longer than what they're used to.
Facilitative type documents for immigration won't be done. The collection of certain, I guess, fees and things like that will be reduced.
The border services are under an essential services order, but there are very few things that are essential to monitor. It could mean a lot of things, but that's their strategy, not mine.
Contract talks continued Thursday with a mediator present as the two sides remain far apart on a number of issues, including wages and harassment-related issues. Eddie noted she is not confident a deal will be reached by Friday morning, but remains optimistic a deal will be struck before the border opens on Monday. In the event a deal isn't reached, border travelers can expect picketers on scene and long lineups and lengthy delays at border crossings, airports, and headquarters locations. Avery McCrae, TBT News.
There is a new COVID-19 case being reported by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit tonight. It's in the Thunder Bay area, and the source of the infection is unknown. There are now 3 active cases across the district, and there have been 3,346 cases overall throughout the pandemic. Meantime, there are no new cases coming from the Northwestern Health Unit today. There are still 2 active cases in that part of the region. A local member of the Ontario NDP is defending her leader after Andrea Horwath found herself in some hot water regarding her stance on mandatory COVID vaccinations.
I didn't expect this from Andrea Horwath, and it's a real shame. But again, as I said a second ago, it's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
That's Ontario Liberal leader Stephen Del Duca, opposing comments made by Horwath during an interview she gave on Wednesday. The NDP leader stated that the ability to refuse a vaccine is a charter right. Horwath then later backtracked from those comments and now supports mandatory vaccines for frontline health and education workers. M.P.P. Judith Monteith-Farrell says the reversal by her party has a lot to do with listening to constituents.
What that is listening to people and really understanding that there is a lot of sides to this issue, because I can tell you in my office I get as many calls of people who don't want vaccinations or don't want mandatory vaccinations as I do with people outraged that they aren't mandatory.
Monteith-Farrell says this situation, like many things in the pandemic, will continue to evolve. Now, as concerns about a possible 4th wave of the pandemic continue to grow, officials say they're confident the healthcare system is now better positioned to deal with any spike in cases. Unlike this spring, when the hospital system was on the brink of collapse, they say high vaccination rates will go a long way in helping to cushion the blow. Natalie Johnson has more.
For the first time since the start of the pandemic, the Brampton Civic Hospital ICU is clear of COVID-19 patients. When not so long ago, 100 patients a week were being transferred out of the campus, pushed to capacity.
An incredible sign of progress and the success of the vaccination effort.
But health officials still warn of the need to be vigilant. The Ontario Hospital Association saying today that with colder, shorter days on the horizon, quote, this pandemic is ending, but a fourth wave could still inflict a deadly toll on the unvaccinated. Doctors remain hopeful, though, that Ontario will not relive the spring strain on the healthcare system, even if case counts creep up.
I think that the risk of being on the brink of collapse of the hospital and healthcare system, like we were in April, I don't think that we should see that or expect that in the coming months because of the vaccine rate that we have here in Ontario.
Both the UK and the US have seen a sharp spike in cases, but Ontario's vaccination rates are more comparable to the UK, where the increase in hospitalizations has been minimal. Contrast that with Florida, which has a much lower vaccination rate and which just shattered its hospitalization record, previously set before COVID-19 vaccines were even available.
We're running out of materials. Our staff is exhausted. We're really straining. And it's particularly distressing that so many of our patients are young, otherwise healthy individuals that can't breathe.
And who were eligible for a shot and chose not to take it. The fourth wave being called the pandemic of the unvaccinated, even in Ontario.
I think it's primarily going to be younger, unvaccinated children, and of course, the adults that have chosen not to get the vaccine. And I'm really hoping the vaccinated individuals in the population will kind of act as a fire break.
Experts optimistic that Ontario's hospitals won't be overwhelmed if case counts climb, a scenario they say that can be staved off with every shot. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
Another fire-threatened Northern First Nation has begun to evacuate some of its community members. About 200 people from Wabsamung are expected to be out of the community by the end of day. That's according to the Ministry of the Solicitor General. While some are being sent to Kenora, others will make their temporary home as far away as London, Ontario. Wabsamung declared a state of emergency on Monday. Fire Information Officer Chris Marchand says the massive Kenora 51 fire, which has grown to more than 197,000 hectares, continues to bear down on the community, but there's a body of water currently blocking its path.
That fire continues to burn north of Umfreville Lake, and to this point, it is not descended below that level. It is sort of burned to the northern shore of that lake, and it has about almost a 1.5 to 2 kilometer span of water to cross in order to advance southwards. And that is not an unheard of thing when it comes to this particular fire. So as of yet, that fire has not been able to gain a foothold on the other side of the lake closest to the community.
Marchand adds that could change, though, as the enormous blaze is capable of making the jump if embers begin to fall on the other side of the lake. Wabsamung is now the 6th community to be evacuated. There are currently 114 wildfires burning across the region, but there is some good news, as some significant rain has fallen today over some of the more concerning fires, including Kenora 51. It has been more than 2 years since the federal government settled a class action lawsuit with survivors of Indian day schools, but many are still struggling throughout the claims process. Fortunately, free one-on-one help is now available here in Thunder Bay. Officials with the Federal Indian Day School Community Support Program are set up at the Victoria Inn until Saturday to help survivors submit their claims. Anyone who suffered abuse at one of Canada's 699 Indian Day schools is eligible for up to $200,000. Urban Community Strategy lead Krystal Summers says the paperwork can be overwhelming for people to navigate on their own, especially since they have to recount their abuse.
Sometimes it's the first time that they have shared it with anyone, or even just thought about, those memories in many, many years. So it can be a really challenging process. It can also be an important step in someone's healing journey, like to do this as well. And so it's really important for us in acknowledging that it can be really challenging and bring up a lot of those traumatic memories, that we have healing supports available on site.
Those supports include Indigenous elders and mental health workers. The service is being offered locally from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. tomorrow and from 9 a.m. till noon on Saturday before moving on to Kenora on Monday. Anyone planning to attend is encouraged to pre-register at indiandayschools.com, but walk-ins are also welcome. An Atikokan resident is dead following a single vehicle collision on Highway 622 last night. Police, fire, and ambulance crews were called to the scene 3 kilometers north of the community shortly before 7:30. The lone occupant of the vehicle, 72-year-old Larry Gashinsky, was pronounced dead soon after. The highway was closed for 6 hours for the investigation, and a post-mortem was scheduled to be held earlier today. The latest cargo statistics for the Port of Thunder Bay have seen another significant drop in total grain volumes compared to last year. And with crops on the prairies threatened by drought conditions, a potential further decline is looming in the fall. Mitchell Ringo says more.
Coming off a record high grain volume in 2020, the Port of Thunder Bay saw another decrease during the month of July, dropping from 1.1 million tons of overall cargo to 865,000, with the year-to-date total lagging 18% behind last year's pace. Director of Communications for the port, Heikkinen, said he isn't that worried for the port as they are still sitting at their 5-year average numbers, and he expects the volumes to pick back up in the long run.
We've seen a decrease in the grain volumes compared to 2020, which was a modern peak level, if you will. So those have come down to be more near the 5-year average. And we're seeing increases in other commodities as the economy globally begins to rebound.
Heikkinen says the grain crop production analysts have started to predict some damage on prairie crops production because of heat and drought, which could see a 5% decrease in the overall harvest for this crop year. That could translate to a decline in shipments for the fall, which would put the port below its 5-year average. Heikkinen says the crop damage in the prairies will be temporary, and he thinks in the long run, Canadian wheat farmers will continue to produce strong harvests.
Over the past 10-year time frame and even 5 years, the crop production has steadily increased on the prairies. There's technological advancements and there's new agronomic practices being put into place all the time. So it's not uncommon to see some of these severe weather factors impact parts of the prairies.
And with the grain totals dropping, the port has moved into different cargoes such as phosphate fertilizer and steel beams to diversify their cargo shipments. Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
The Thunder Bay District Health Unit issued notice of a food recall due to possible hepatitis A contamination. It involves mango products from Nature's Touch frozen foods. The recalled products include Nature's Touch frozen mango in the 2-kilogram package, Compliments frozen mango mania in the 600-gram package, Irresistible's frozen mango chunks in the 600-gram package, and President's Choice frozen mango chunks also in the 600-gram package. Health officials say these products should not be eaten and should be discarded. The annual Hometown Heroes Charity Golf Classic returned today, hosted by Thunder Bay's own Carter Hutton. The annual golf tournament, in benefit of the George Jeffrey Children's Foundation, was able to return somewhat to normal this year after a scaled-back event last year that pitted Hutton against pro golfer Evan DeGrazia. Now this year, the tournament hosted over a dozen teams for a full 18 holes, followed by a socially distanced dinner and presentations over Zoom. The freedom to include more participants is helping to raise more money, and organizers hope to bring in a total of $45,000. Director of the George Jeffrey Children's Foundation, Cindy Levanto Kawahara, says a smaller organization like theirs makes fundraising vital.
We rely on those funds to support our center for the programs and services that the center provides for all the kids, 2,500 kids actually that passed through our doors this past year. So
being able to be home that often when I get out to do this event, it's great. And then knowing where the money's going is obviously all that matters. And I think for every person that shows up here, for me, I get to carry the weight of being the host, which is obviously an honor. But at the end of the day, it's the people that support and come out every year. And I think I say that tirelessly.
The event's online auction is open to the public until August 12th at hometownheroesgolf.com. And another local resident is celebrating a big lottery win today. Holly Rocco of Thunder Bay was at the OLG Prize Center in Toronto to pick up a check for $1 million, one of the Max Million prizes in the June 22nd Lotto Max draw. Now the 43-year-old says she will use the windfall to pay off her mortgage, travel again when it's safe, and save for her retirement. She says her kids are also excited about the win because They're all getting new iPhones. Rocco purchased the winning ticket at the Dawson Road Max store.
That's my favorite Mac store, Dawson Road. It just became my favorite Mac store. Great, congratulations. Avery, we're doing it again. We're matching. Very tough look. Very tough look.
I almost went with the blue tie too.